Well, hello, beautiful people. Today we are going to be chatting about books with jaw-dropping endings. You know the books, the ones that kind of make you slightly paralyzed, might make you have a hard time picking up another book because you were so hung up on the last book you just read and that you cannot get over that ending. Let's dive in. There's different kinds of books that will do this to you. I have different categories for this. First, we're going to chat about endings that change the entire book that you just read. You get to the end and you go, oh, wait a second. This makes me want to pick up this book all over again and read it from a different vantage point, a different point of view. Knowing what I know now, I want to go back to the beginning and start again. First is My Husband. I read this year and it has stuck with me and also has blown me away. And I'll read anything this author writes from now on. This follows a woman. She is in her, I think, early 40s. She is married with kids, lives in the suburbs. What is most interesting about her is not her, it is her husband. She is obsessed with her husband. And when I say obsessed, I mean completely obsessed. She prepares for every single interaction that she has with him. After the interaction, she obsesses over what he said. What did it mean, what he said? And these are the littlest things, like my husband said that he's not able to sleep with the blinds open. So I've lived with having the blinds closed my entire 15 years in this relationship. One day she goes ahead and opens the blinds in the middle of the night and she's like, my God, he was lying to me this whole time, because he ends up being able to sleep through it. Obsessive, just wild. I think just getting into her head was really fascinating and kept me flipping the pages. But then at the end, I literally gasped in my car. I listened to it on audio. I gasped at the ending. Go and read it. A Head Full of Ghosts is next by Tremblay. This is about a family, a relatively normal family, who have two daughters, Marjorie and Mary. Marjorie is the eldest daughter, and she starts displaying strange things. She's acting very oddly. They get the doctors involved. Doctors have no idea what to do, but it is becoming more and more scary. Is Marjorie actually possessed? Does she have some sort of mental illness instead? They go the doctor route as far as they can, but they do decide to get a priest on board. They actually begin filming. They have the whole thing on a TV show, kind of exposing their eldest daughter. In any case, you are following this family at that time. And then 15 years later, when Mary, the youngest child, is telling her story of what happened to her sister and her witnessing this and living with her sister in amidst all of this, to someone. She's telling her story. This was extremely creepy. There's a scene in here that I have never been able to get out of my head where the oldest sister is whispering into the younger sister's ears and scary things that you would not be able to get over. You know, if my oldest sister did this to me, I wouldn't be able to get over it. And then we got to the end and I was like, excuse me? Excuse me? And I wanted to start all over again. Do you guys have books like that as well? I've got a couple more to share. I'd love to know what books you had that experience with. Next up is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This is a heartbreaking book. It's based on a Florida school for boys. And in this book, we're following a Black boy named Elwood. I think it's set in the 60s. And he has done nothing wrong. Okay, he's done nothing wrong. However, he is sent to a school for boys that's meant to reintegrate them into society. Now, we all know that is just a school that's going to be filled with horrors and abuse. And it is. It absolutely is. Especially hard on the Black boys. Not as hard on the white boys, but still awful. And so Elwood goes to this school and is truly just trying to get through, trying to have as minimal amount of abuse happen to him as possible. He does befriend a boy named Turner. And through it all, Elwood is able to maintain some, I wouldn't say innocence, but maybe optimism that he will get to the other side of this. Turner, on the other hand, doesn't have that feeling. He is filled with cynicism. Now, this is a devastating book. You will cry. I know you will. But I will say I got to the end and I just could not believe what I was reading. I could not believe the turn of events at the ending of this book. And it is a devastating ending that makes you want to read it all over again. It's just so good. If you haven't read this book, prepare yourself, but read it. Trespasses is next. This is another book that I read this year, and it just grew on me. It is a slow burn, but if you can hang in there, the ending is wild, mind-blowing. This is set in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. We follow a woman who is single, kind of taking care of her mom. She's a school teacher by day, and then at night she works at her family's pub. And there she meets a man named Michael. Michael is older than her. He is a barrister. He defends IRA members. And not only that, he's Protestant. She is Catholic. This is, at this time, a no-go, not a good idea. And he's also married. All that aside, he ends up getting into a relationship with her. They have an affair, but a very meaningful affair. And this is all happening in the midst of the Troubles, which is almost a character in and of itself. And then one day, one of her students' fathers is terribly beaten, and everything starts to unravel and it becomes a real mess. And at the end, how things weave together, I did not see coming. I didn't see it coming, and it absolutely made me want to read through again more purposefully, and have a different reading. That one would be a very, very different reading than the first go round, that's for sure. It was wonderful. Also really great on audio. So we've got endings where you get to the end and realize this actually has a whole different way of looking at it. We've got that, we've discussed that. And now we're going to chat about endings where they are basically WTF endings, where you are left shocked and paralyzed, often because of the extreme amount of violence you have just witnessed. Now, The Witch Elm is first. This is Tana French. This is a standalone that she wrote, and my favorite mystery of all time. I love this book. I adore this book. This follows a man named Toby. He's super happy-go-lucky, outgoing, goes out with his boys for the night. They go to a pub. On the way back from the pub, Toby is horrifically beaten. He is so badly beaten. He gets home. He's like, he could have died, okay? He gets home and tries to live on his own again, but the struggle is real. His mental health is shattered, and he decides that it's probably best to go and stay with his uncle. His uncle is quite ill, and so Toby goes to stay with him. He was always close to his uncle. He and his cousins used to go and stay the summers with his uncle, and it's a very big, close-knit family. So this is not an odd thing to go and stay with his uncle and take care of him. Really, they're taking care of each other. In any case, one day in the backyard, a skull is found in the trunk of this elm tree. How did it get there? What in the world happened? I thought I knew my family so very well. And we dive into the insanity that consumes Toby. Of course, the police get involved. It is just a wild ride, and something that I absolutely want to read again. Like, this is something I'll read over and over again. But the ending is so shocking and truly violent that I was just like, how did it get here? How did we get here? I did not foresee this whatsoever. So brilliantly written. Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman is next. This book follows an 8-year-old girl named Bella. She has her mommy and her daddo. She also is very close to her grandmother. And there is some real animosity. Animosity, is that the right word? Just tension in her parents' marriage. But she's 8. She doesn't fully understand it. And in the meanwhile, she is being haunted by a creature that she calls Other Mommy. And this ghost lives in her closet and will open up the closet door. And when you see Other Mommy is often like her head is crooked. I always think of The Haunting of Hill House. You know the scene. If you haven't seen that whole TV series on Netflix, oh my goodness, it's so good. Anyway, so Other Mommy will just kind of like be like this with her and try to talk to her. And apparently she makes jokes and stuff. That in and of itself is creepy. In any case, eventually Other Mommy comes out of the closet, goes next to Bella's bedside and asks Bella, "Bella, will you let me into your heart?" And she asks this every night and will not really take no for an answer. Naturally, things spiral, and it is genuinely a terrifying book. The ending was so brutal and shocking that I thought it wasn't the ending. I thought there were pages missing at the end. Again, I listened to this on audio. I listened to a lot of audio, but it ended and I was like, surely that's not how this ends. But it was. Yeah, that was it. Yep. So took some time to get over that. Now we get into endings that you thought were like wrapped up in this beautiful, sweet little bow, this lovely little bow, and you're like, oh, good, that's a nice way to end it. And then you flip the page and realize, no, this is not an ending. Nothing is ever going to end for these characters. It's just the beginning. It almost feels like there could be a sequel at these endings. You know the ones, Sharp Object. This is my favorite Gillian Flynn. Oh, I shouldn't say that. It really is a toss-up between Gone Girl and Sharp Objects. This follows a woman named Camille. She has left her little hometown. She didn't have a great time there. She also doesn't really get along with her mom. She left her little hometown. She is a reporter now, doing pretty well for herself. She has some problems. Camille is a very complex person with a lot of problems of her own. But there is a string of murders happening in her little hometown, and it all revolves around girls. Fairly young-ish girls are being killed, and all of their teeth are pulled out. And her boss decides, well, you know the place, you should go there and cover the story. And so she goes and reluctantly decides she's going to stay with her mother, her stepfather, and her stepsister. Very awkward because she really doesn't know her stepfather or her stepsister at all. And then her mom is just, oh my gosh, so negative and judgmental and annoying beyond belief. A lot of tension. So she's dealing with that and this murder case, and she's trying to solve the murder and find out what's happening alongside the police. Now, this book is short. It's short. It is like so easy to turn the pages. Definitely something that you could binge read. Absolutely. I reached what I thought was the ending. I was very happy with how this was flowing and what was going on. And then I turned the page and realized, oh my word, how is this? This is a brand new ending. And changed, it didn't change everything, but it was such a, like, I don't know, it gave me whiplash. That's what this book did. The ending gave me Whiplash. Next is Tangerine by Christine Mangan. I really should pick up more by Christine Mangan. It's been a while. This is set in Morocco in 1956, and we follow Alice, who's moved to Morocco with her husband, a fairly new husband, and she doesn't really explore. She mostly stays inside, and just kind of lives day to day as a housewife until an old housemate of hers, Lucy, just shows up at her doorstep. And it's very awkward because the last time they saw each other, they didn't part on good terms. Let me just put it that way. There's Lucy, and Lucy wants to stay with her, so she has to kind of invite her in and create this kind of awkward relationship between her and Lucy. But then all of a sudden, her husband is found dead. He is found dead, and she doesn't know what to do because she's disturbed. She's not sure if she can trust Lucy. And yet she needs to trust someone in a place that she doesn't know. This is very atmospheric. And again, you will read this book and you get to the end and then discover, no, this is not an end. It's not over. It's not over. And I still think about Alice. You doing okay, Alice? Probably not. Death of a Bookseller is next. Loved this book. This follows people who work at a bookstore. We follow Roach, who works in a bookstore, very obsessed with true crime, borderline obsessive about true crime. And we meet Laura, who comes to start working at this bookstore because that bookstore is kind of failing. So she's here to revamp things, see if she can boost sales. So she's kind of Roach's boss in a kind of not so clear way. And Roach sees that Laura has a true crime book in her bag and thinks, we're going to be best friends, and becomes obsessed with becoming best friends with Laura. She asks Laura about true crime, and Laura is very remiss to speak about it. And there is history in Laura's past that you come to know as the reader, why she doesn't really like true crime, but why she's also reading a true crime book. There's a reason. It's more analytical than anything else. And Roach becomes obsessed with Laura. She becomes obsessed with Laura's past. And even though Laura is not an open book about her difficult, tragic past, Roach is obsessed and will stop at nothing to uncover what happened in Laura's past. It is so disturbing, this book. You want to throttle Roach while you're reading this. And again, at the end of this book, I thought everything was tied into a nice little bow, and no, it's not. The Watchers is the last book in this category. This follows a girl named Mina. She is hired to bring a parrot to its new location. Very strange objective, but she lives in Ireland. She's driving through the Irish countryside. Her car breaks down and she's lost. She's in the middle of nowhere. And so she has to get out. She gets out, she gets the parrot out. She's going through the forest trying to find a house, anything. And she sees a bunker in the distance. And outside of the bunker, a woman is screaming at her to get inside. Hurry, run. So she starts speeding as quickly as she can to the bunker, to this woman. The woman closes the door just in time for darkness to fall. They lock the door. They go into another room, and there's a pane of glass, and the light turns on in this bunker. It is dark outside. You can't see anything. And suddenly she understands that they are basically prisoners here. They are being watched by something, the Watchers, and they have to survive. They have to somehow survive. These strange people who are truly strangers very much view the world differently, very much view their situation quite differently from one another. and they have to try to survive. And Mina is trying to survive right alongside the rest of them. Again, this book, I thought it was going one way and it was going another. It was going another, and I loved every second of it. This was like a new favorite horror book of mine. I did a whole series, I did a whole video, I should say, of my favorite horror books of all time. This was in there. I will link that below. Highly recommend. All right, the last theme is books that are so shocking and devastating that you're going to take a while to recover. We're going to start with a book that I actually sobbed at the end. Sobbed and hoped nobody would be around. It's The Book Thief by Marcus Zizek. In this book, you're following a girl named Liesel. She lives in Nazi Germany. It's 1939. Her family cannot keep her. Her mother can't keep her. So she is taken to live with a German family. Now, she doesn't understand war because she's a child. She's trying to understand it, but really doesn't. And these people are not Nazi sympathizers. They're against the war, but they're living in Germany, surrounded by Nazis. She's trying to have a childhood through this. She meets a neighborhood boy. They become best friends. And it is a growing up story in one of the most devastating situations surrounding you. Growing up in the midst of war must be barely a childhood. Somehow she tries to make it work. But yes, at the end of this book, you are so tied to all of the characters that you wish you hadn't, because you get to the end of this book and not everyone is okay. It's a big one. You're gonna love the characters right through that. That's a lot of time with characters to fall in love with, and then oh my goodness, that ending is just brutal in the most sad way. Another World War II story with a devastating ending is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. There's also a sequel to this. If you like The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is a tiny novella, then you should definitely read the sequel. This follows a family in Nazi Germany. In this case, the family, the head of the family, the man of the family, the father, is the head of a concentration camp. He's the head of it. He is sending Jews to their death every single day, and he believes it is rightly so. We follow his son, who doesn't understand any of it. He doesn't understand whatsoever, and it doesn't understand why he's supposed to stay at the house, and not to go near the barbed wire, which is very close to the house. There is a concentration camp very close by, and he doesn't listen to orders, and he goes to the fence and sees a little boy playing on the other side of the fence, and they become friends. This can only end badly. It can only end in devastation, and it does. It truly does. It is so worth a read, though. Beautifully, beautifully written, just extremely sad. Last but not least, we've got The Pull of the Stars, which is probably one of the most beautiful books on my shelves. Are you witnessing this? My goodness, this takes place in 1918 in Dublin, and we follow a woman who is a nurse. Now, we've got war, and we've also got a pandemic going on, and Nurse Power is on staff. She is working in a maternity ward and trying to keep the women who are there alive, trying to keep their babies alive. Now, she's so understaffed that she's very happy when a volunteer comes in and says, I'd like to help out. She comes in, and her name is Bridie Sweeney. And these women are trying to work together over the course of 3 days to help these women. Now, while you're reading this, you feel drained, just like a nurse would feel drained. There's so much going on. It feels chaotic at times, and you feel like you are in the midst of it, like you're one of the nurses or one of the volunteers right alongside Nurse Powers. But by the end of this book, you get another resurgence of energy because of what happens. Again, you're going to cry. You will cry. These last 3 books, if you don't cry reading these books, I mean, I don't know. What does it say? I don't know. Are you okay? So good. So devastatingly wonderful. Those are all the books that I wanted to chat with you about today. All of them with endings that will blow your mind. Let me know in the comments below any book recommendations that you have with endings that are just either devastatingly sad, shocking in some way. I would love to know, and I'm sure everyone else would love to know as well. And if you liked this video, hit the like button. It also helps my channel, and I will talk with you very soon. Goodbye.